Welcome to the Jaron Jarvis channel. I am Jaron Jarvis. Today, I would like to introduce to you, It Only Wanted a Small Sacrifice. I sat in a circle feeling pretty stupid and not entirely aware of my surroundings. The four of us were hauled up in an old abandoned house that hadn't been lived in for years. It wasn't creepy so much as it was just smelly and old. There was no furniture in it left from the previous occupants, but it did have one weird painting above the old fireplace of a man with a dog. I thought it was the only thing out of place in the entire house because it did not have any dust on it like the rest of the house. I guessed it was the owner of the old house but did not think much of it as I listened to Beth go on about how to conjure the Angel of Florence. It was some obscure find on the internet about an angel that was neither male nor female but granted wishes to anyone who asked. There had been a story of a boy who had been severely abused by his parents, and after completing this game he was relieved to have been adopted by a new family after his own went mysteriously missing. The game didn't have any clear rules exactly, but that you had to have 4 people to play and give an offering to the angel. The one that deserved it the most got what they so desired. It was Beth's idea as usual, to try the latest online game challenge. We had tried the elevator game and it went nowhere, and I figured this was just another way for her to think of a spooky way to scare us all. I fidgeted with my phone on the inside of my coat pocket trying to ignore the text from my mom asking me if I knew what time it was. I knew I was most likely grounded, but we were so close now to midnight. At exactly midnight we would all offer up something to him as the game said to, and then remain in the house for the next hour while each one of us sat alone in areas of the house, one facing north, south, east and west. I was the skeptic of the group as I never believed in anything supernatural at all. It just seemed stupid to me, and while I wanted to be at home with my Xbox and a pizza, I remained here because if I left now I would be marked as a chicken. We all sat around the circle and Beth read from the piece of paper she had in her hand, a printout of the information on how to play the game. Place an item that is precious to you in the box. She read out loud to us as she dropped her favorite keychain into a small black box. There were 4 of us: Jared, Mike, Annabelle and myself. Everyone put in the items that were the most precious to them. Jared put in his favorite photo of he and his dog that had died the previous year. Annabelle put in a rose quartz that she considered her lucky stone, and I still wasn't sure what to put in. They looked at me as though I were the worst person in the world because I still had no idea what I was placing in the box. I reached into my pocket and just threw in a $20 bill. It has to be something precious to you. Annabelle said in a shocked tone, money is precious to me. I smirked. Beth rolled her eyes but put the lid on the small black box anyway and then lit 4 black candles. You guys ready? If we are going to get our wishes granted, then we must do this. We now must hold our candles and stand inside a white circle while we chant, bring forth the wings that envelop us so spirits see our desires. She looked at me while she recited it. I rolled my eyes and said it with her while the rest of them began to recite it as well. Part of the game was we had to continue to say it as we went to our assigned areas of the old house. We had to take chalk and draw a circle and sit in it while we faced toward our designated directions: north, south, east or west. I got to my so-called designated area and drew my circle as I was told and then waited. I had no idea what exactly I was waiting for as Beth was not clear on it. So, I sat there playing with my phone, and as it got later and later I grew tired and bored. The candle that was in front of me burned out, and then I figured it was as appropriate time as any to book it home before I was grounded for life. I stood up feeling no different than I had the day before and then walked out of the circle, out the side door of the house, and walked the 3 blocks home to where I lived. When I got home my parents were sleeping, so it meant I escaped having to hear my mom lecture me about the importance of being an adult and all that about letting her know where I was. I had heard it all before, and to be honest I just wanted to get some sleep myself. The next afternoon when I finally managed to wake up, the house was still as silent as it was when I arrived at 3 a.m. I was shocked my mom didn't wake me up out of a dead sleep to lecture me, but when I got out of bed she seemed to be completely unaware of how late I had stayed out. There was no lecture, no angry yelling at how she almost had a heart attack, Just completely normal, and when I got down to breakfast there were pancakes made, my favorite blueberry with strawberry. Was it Christmas? Maybe I should stay out late every night morning, she said to me merrily as I sat at the kitchen table next to my little brother, Sam. My dad had his nose in the newspaper while he shoved bacon in his mouth and slurped loudly on his coffee. After breakfast I went up to my room to play some video games, and when I got up there I noticed something had been placed on my pillow. I got closer and saw it was a crisp brand new $20 bill. I smirked. Today really was my lucky day. I put it in my dresser drawer thinking my mom must have done it. Then my phone started to vibrate and I picked it up off my nightstand, disconnecting it from the charger, and looked at it as I plopped down on the bed. Did you take the box last night? It is missing. Annabelle and Jared have no idea because it wasn't any of us, and you are the only one that didn't stay till dawn. You were supposed to stay till first light. I rolled my eyes and texted her back. Sorry, I have no idea. I went home because my mom was stalking me. And when did you say we had to stay till dawn? I don't recall you ever mentioning that. I didn't get any more texts from her, so I guessed she must have given up on me for the rest of the day. As the day wore on, nothing unusual happened, but I noticed that all this good luck was coming my way. I smirked when my mom knocked on my door to ask me if I wanted any snacks because she was taking my little brother to the store. Now, this never happened and I never got the house to myself, so I was just reveling in how awesome my day was beginning. What does a person have to do to get this lucky every day? I said to myself as I stood up to take a momentary break from my video game to go into the bathroom. When I got into the bathroom and on the mirror, was the words "Give blood now." I laughed to myself thinking this had to be some sort of joke my little brother was playing on me. Okay, you little jerk, come out. I pulled back the shower curtain thinking he was hiding from me, but no one was there. I walked into his room and again he wasn't there, and I checked downstairs just to make sure he in fact wasn't home. Everyone was gone and I was alone. I started to feel a little uneasy. Then I began to grow paranoid, thinking that perhaps an intruder was in my house. I gulped, walking back into the bathroom to look at the mirror. It no longer had the words on it asking for blood. I must be tired, I thought to myself as I went back to my bedroom and sat down on the bed. I picked up my controller and started playing my game. That is when things started to get strange because the alarm to the house went off suddenly. I stood up annoyed, but my annoyance only turned to fear because as I walked to the door of my bedroom, that is when I saw it. Just down the hall was a dark shadowy being with black wings on its back. It was taller than me as its head was just under our 10-foot ceilings. It towered over me, glaring at me with yellow eyes. I don't know how I was still breathing because I was sure I had stopped. I remained frozen in the hallway watching whatever this phantom was. It seemed to use its eyes as a beacon of light to pull me toward it. I wanted to scream, but no sound would come out of my mouth. I felt myself not hearing the words but understanding it wanted me to sacrifice something of myself. I heard the front door slam shut, and then my mother, whose face was angrier than I had ever seen her, walked right up the stairs and seemed to glare at me, confronting me. My senses were on overdrive then as I looked at her furious face. Do you have any idea what you did? I looked at her and then I realized the phantom was gone. I was confused now, but I had no idea what she was going off about. No, why, what? She grabbed me by my arm and then she held it, digging her nails into my flesh until I screamed for her to stop. Mom, you're hurting me. She kept digging deeper and more intensely. I was struggling to get away from her, yet her strength was like nothing I had felt before. The wound was growing deeper and the cut of her nails on my flesh were like razors cutting into steak. How dare you treat me like this? You have a smart mouth. She screamed at me. I managed to finally get away from her and ran to my room. She followed me unfortunately and began to bang on the door. She remained there for a long while and then I heard my dad pull up and I opened my bedroom door and ran down to the driveway to where he was getting ready to come in the house. Dad, something is wrong with Mum. I yelled. What do you mean something is wrong with Mum? He asked me, the look of concerned confusion written on his face. I pointed to my arm and when he looked down he grew angry. What is the meaning of this? He asked me. She's gone crazy. Just then my mom came out of the house with a towel in her hand and smiled at the both of us. "Dinner will be ready soon," she said, and then went back into the house. I looked at her and then at my dad, who was even more confused. "Now let's go inside and sort this out," he said, walking ahead of me into the house. When we got inside, my little brother came over to me and kicked me in the shin and then ran away from me. My dad turned toward me and then shook his head. "Sam, say you're sorry." My mom was her usual self now, but I couldn't get what happened out of my head. My thoughts went to the phantom I had encountered in my house that same afternoon, and I wondered if it was connected. I started to think perhaps my mom had become possessed, and that is why the strange change in mood. My dad seemed to forget about my arm after he got inside because he went straight to his office and worked through dinner. I got through dinner, but as soon as it was over I went straight to my room and locked the door. I began to think of something I could do for the creature because I wasn't giving it my blood. That is when I recalled my mom kept the first tooth I had ever lost in my baby book. I climbed into my closet and pulled it off the top shelf. Just inside the front pocket was a slip of hair taped to the side with my birth date, a photo of me when I came home from the hospital, and my first ever tooth that I lost in a side pocket made of cloth. "I hope this will do," I said out loud, and I put the tooth out on top of my dresser. I began to recite what Beth had wanted us to during our game ritual. "Bring forth the wings that envelop us, O Spirit, see my desire." With that I went to bed, as I had enough for one day. The next day I woke up and my mom had a note next to my bed and a plate of cupcakes. I looked at the note, which read, "Have a great day. Sorry about yesterday." I sat up and realized that she had been in my room and I had locked it the night before. I sat up and looked around the room. I went to look for the tooth, but it was now gone. I hoped that whatever that thing was, it took the tooth as an offering and would get out of my life. That day went on with no issues, as did the following, and then on the third day it happened again. I was sitting in my American history class, bored out of my mind, when Beth tapped me on the shoulder crying. "I hate you," she said, glaring at me. "What?" I looked at her like she was nuts. "What did I do? Can you stop trying to act so innocent?" she asked, grabbing onto me and pulling me back toward her. "Beth, what in the hell are you talking about?" I asked her in a loud, angry whisper. "You should die for what you did. But I didn't do anything. Is this about that box? I told you I didn't take it. You need to kill yourself. I think you need to get away from me," I said, standing up and walking out of class. I walked down the hallway, and since it was last period of the day I just left and walked home. When I got home I went straight to my room and locked my bedroom door. I looked up Angel of Florence and read as much as I could. I wanted to know exactly what we had conjured in that old house that night. I found some boring stuff about the Angel of Florence hailed from a small town not far from where I lived and was born as an old urban legend. Angel of Florence was hailed as a fairy godmother of the underworld or the downtrodden. It usually came to the aid of needy children to rescue them from abusive parents. Until Beth, I had never heard of such a creature, and I'm guessing you haven't either. I clicked on some links from this obscure website she had told me about before, and then there was a message board over on that same site. I scrolled through it and read as many posts as I could find about what it was and if there was any way to get rid of it. There were spirit cooking recipes that used blood in sweet cakes and cookies to provide offering to the Angel of Florence. However, it would often mean more offerings had to be made down the line. There was one girl that wrote of her experiences finally ending when she made a final sacrifice that was documented in a diary that was later found by police, where she described in grave detail the murder of both her parents and dismembering of their bodies. I wanted to be sick reading these posts, and as I did I heard a loud knock on my door. It was my dad, and when I opened the door he was angry like I had never seen him before. He had been drinking and he smiled at me when I looked at him. "Hey, no one is home right now. Want to share a beer with your old man?" I shook my head. "No thank you. I have to finish my homework." There was something very sinister about the way he looked at me then, like I was prey and he was the thing that was going to eat me. "Maybe you should stop worrying about school," he said as his eyes darkened. "Why?" I asked, annoyed. "You won't live long enough to graduate." He began to laugh maniacally and walked away from my door, stumbling into the wall and nearly falling down the stairs as he returned to his office. I no longer cared what I had to do, this had to end. I decided to try out the blood sacrifice to see if I could keep this thing away from me. Everywhere I turned it was turning people against me. I locked my bedroom door and then dug in a drawer for my pocket knife. I looked for something to drain my blood in and found an old Mountain Dew bottle in the trash can. I washed it out and then began to cut into myself. The pain was bad, but not as bad as it was when my mom had attacked me. I managed to get in as much as I could before I bled to death, and I patched up my wound, leaving the bottle on my dresser as a sacrifice once more. I curled up into my bed and managed to fall asleep. When I woke the next day, the door to my room was still locked, but the bottle remained. My heart sunk as I saw it still there sitting on top of my dresser. The angel did not take the bait. When I grabbed the bottle, I realized it was empty. It in fact did take the offering. I was relieved, and when I opened the door to my room and the house was quiet and there was no sound of impending doom. The next few days everything went back to normal and I figured that was the end of it. Then something strange happened. I was watching television when I overheard my little brother laughing with a couple of his friends that were staying over. I turned to look behind me and there Sam was with 3 of his friends smiling at me. "What do you 4 dorks want? Have you ever heard of the Angel of Florence?" Sam asked me as he began to giggle with his hands pressed upon his mouth. My blood turned cold because how were these 9 and 10-year-old kids asking me about something so obscure? Had they overheard me talking about it? Why? I looked at them suspiciously because it is still waiting on you to kill yourself.